What's up, everybody? It's Dan from SageMathTutoring.com, and I have an algebra video for a student of mine who's in 7th grade, and he's got a test coming up tomorrow. So one of the things I offer my students is to make videos to help them with their test prep. So here we have a bunch of algebra equations, multi-step equations. So I say we just dive in, and hopefully my student watching, just by the act of watching, it'll be helpful. So let's see, looking here, 7x plus 3 equals 31. Well, we want to get the 7x by itself, so we got to get rid of that 3. So it's going to be minus 3, and then we end up with 7x equals, that would be 28. And then at that point, we have to divide both sides by 7, because that would cancel the 7s, and then we end up with x equals 4, and that is the answer. I don't believe the teacher asked to plug that 4 back in, but you could always do that if you wanted to. 7 times 4 is 28, plus 3 is definitely 31. All right, moving on to the next one. So the goal is to get this 6m by itself first, and then we could, divide by that 6, but we got to get the 6m by itself first, so we're going to subtract 8 from both sides. So we have minus 8, canceling, we end up with 6m, and that equals 26 minus 8. So I like to think of as 16 minus 8 is definitely 8, so 26 minus 8 is going to be 18. So we have 18 right there, and then dividing both sides by 6 would leave us with m equals 3. Hopefully that makes sense. All right, negative 3z minus 7 equals 23. All right, well, we want to at least get this negative 3z by itself. So the way that we do that is we add 7 to both sides to cancel out that negative 7. That would cancel it. We end up with negative 3z equals 23 plus 7 is 30. And then we got to divide both sides by, careful, negative 3. Alright, so that cancels that, and then we end up with c equals, now let's be careful here, positive 30 divided by negative 3. First of all, is it going to be positive or negative? It's going to be negative because it's a positive divided by a negative. And then we would just write negative, right? And then we could be like, okay, 30 divided by 3, what's that? 10. Boom. Alright, 63 equals 3x plus 9. So first we want to get that 3x by itself at least, so we're going to subtract 9 from both sides. That would cancel. And then we'd end up with 3x equals, what's 63 minus 9? 63 minus 9 is, well, let's see, 13 minus 9 is 4. So that's going to be 54. So then we have to divide both sides by 3. And that would cancel the 3's. And then we have x equals whatever 54 divided by 3 is now. I'm going to go off to the side and just kind of do that. 54 divided by 3. Now, my student at home watching, please make sure that your division game is on point. 3 goes into 5 how many times? It goes into 5 one time. So then it's going to be 3 times that 1, and that gives us 3. So we're going to subtract that 3 from 5, and that gives us 2. You're going to drop the 4 down, and then you ask yourself, 3 goes into 24 how many times? Well, obviously that's 8. So the answer is 18. 54 divided by 3 is 18. So we're going to put that there. Boom. That is that one. All right, 7h minus 15 equals 48. So we want to get that 7h by itself at least first. So we're going to add 15 to both sides, cancel, then we end up with 7h equals 48 plus 15. Well, my student might want to go off to the side with that. Let's kind of analyze that. 8 plus 5 is 13, carry the 1, and then it's going to be 4 plus 1, which is 5, plus that extra 1. So that's going to be 6. So 48 plus 15 is 63, and then at that point you're going to want to divide both sides by that 7, and you end up with h equals 63 divided by 7. My student at home, hopefully you understand that division flashcards / multiplication flashcards. Unfortunately, this is sort of a memorization situation, and hopefully you would remember that 63 divided by 7 is 9. All right, moving on. 13b minus 76. And by the way, my student at home watching this, please study your multiplication table if need be before the actual test. That would really, really come in handy for sure. Okay, so once again, 9 times 7 is 63. All right, 13b minus 76. So clearly we want to get that 13b by itself first. So we're going to add 76 to both sides, canceling, and then we end up with 13b equals 28 plus 76. I will go off to the side over here, 28, 76, adding. 8 plus 6 is 14, carry the 1. And then we end up with, 2 plus 7, which is 9, plus the extra 1, which is 10. So therefore it is 104. And then we must divide by 13. Divide by 13 it up. Boom. B equals 104 divided by 13. That is sort of an annoying situation where you just have to be like, okay, oh no, 104 divided by 13. Let's see, how would I go about this if I didn't know what it was? If I didn't have a calculator, here's how I'd go about it. I would do something like this in my head. I would definitely do division, but I would think to myself, all right, 104 is basically about 100, and 13 is basically about 10, like approximately 10. So under this circumstance, it would clearly be 10 times 10, right? So it should be 13 times around 10. But it seems like 10 might be too high. So when you use this estimate, it's a way of just getting close to the answer. So again, 13 times 10 is 130, so that's way too high. I'd be curious about 13 times 8, which is still kind of in the vicinity. So let's double check. 13 times 8, what the heck is that? Well, 3 times 8 would give us a 4 for 24. And then, 1 times 8 is 8, plus the extra 2 is 10. Yeah, so I'm correct about that. So it's going to be 13 times 8 would give me literally 104. So in other words, you could use this estimate to get a ballpark. We said 10. So that's our way of knowing that it's going to be around 10. It might be 11, it might be 12, it might be 9, it might be 8, but it's going to be around 10, and that at least gives us a vicinity to sort of play with. So B equals 104. We just discovered that beyond a shadow of a doubt. Moving on. All right, to find the number of pints in 3 quarts and 2 pints, you can evaluate the expression 3 times 2 plus 2. All right, so therefore there must be 2 pints in 1 quart, I guess. You have 2 gallons and 1 pint. 2 gallons and 1 pint of milk in your refrigerator. Write and evaluate an expression that will give you the amount of milk in pints in your refrigerator. So that is a strangely difficult problem given the problems that we were just doing. So let's just focus on this. To find the number of pints in 3 quarts and 2 pints. So I'm just going to present a visual of the first thing. So what is it? 3 quarts. So there's a quart. We're going to denote quarts as these like weird boxes. And we're going to denote the pints as triangle. Alright, so I know it's kind of weird, but just bear with me. Again, this is pertaining only to like the first statement. 3 quarts and 2 pints. Well, here it is. 3 quarts plus 2 pints. You can evaluate the expression as 3 times 2 plus 2. So this is 3 times 2 plus 2. That's essentially what they're saying there. And what they want for my student at home, I just want you to understand, what they want you to recognize just based off of that first sentence is that if you could express 3/4 and 2 points with this expression right here, that means that it's, you know, the 3 times 2 is pertaining to this, and the 2 points are over here. And 3 times 2, I mean, that's really the same thing as, if you think about it, 2 plus 2 plus 2, and then we still have plus, you know, these two right here. Okay. So these right here, because 2 plus 2 plus 2, that's really 3 times 2. So therefore, each quart must have 2 pints in it. All right? Each quart has 2 pints in it. All right. So that is, therefore, how you know that each quart has 2 pints in it. Hopefully that makes sense. Okay. Maybe the teacher taught that in a different way, but I kind of think visually like this, and to me that's helpful. Here's the expression they gave us. This is the 2. This last 2 represents the last 2 pints. This is 3 times 2, meaning, you know, 3 quarts. So it's going to be 3 times 2 pints. 2 pints, 2 pints, 2 pints. Okay, so let's see here. You have 2 gallons and 1 pint of milk. So gallons are a whole nother thing that I'm going to represent as this kind of open top thing. We have 2 of those. So these are gallons. And it's 1 pint of milk. So that's going to be plus 1 pint of milk. Now, by the way, my student at home, you don't have to draw it like this, but as long as you understand the concept. Whatever way your teacher taught you, you should do it that way, but I want you to at least on an intellectual level understand what's happening here. So you have 2 gallons and 1 pint of milk in your refrigerator. Write and evaluate an expression that will give you the amount of milk in pints in your refrigerator. So 1 gallon has 4 quarts, right? So 1 gallon has 4 of these quarts, so I'm actually going to just go ahead and draw 4 boxes in each of these, right? Because we already said the quarts are the blue boxes. And we also know that each box has 2 pints in it, so it's like 2, 2, 2, 2, 2, 2, 2, 2, and this is just 1, right? The single triangle is 1 pint. So it's going to be 4 times 2, which is 8 pints, plus 4 times 2, which is another 8 pints, plus the extra 1 pint. And that will give us 8 plus 8 plus 1 is 17. Now, if you were to do that through pure algebra instead of the visual approach, all right, I'll just circle. That is the answer. The pure algebra approach would be something along the lines of really just recognizing based off of the first sentence that 1 quart is equal to 2 pints. So you could like literally write that 1Q equal to 2P. And then you could then sort of be like, all right, well, 1 gallon is 4 quarts, and we want to study, 2 gallons and 1 pint. So that would be, we could write 2, we could say, well, 1 gallon is equal to 4Q. And then we could say, since we're studying 2 gallons and 1 pint, we could say 2 times G plus 1, and because that's 2 gallons plus 1 pint, and G is equal to 4Q. So that would be 2 times really 4Q plus 1. All right, so we replace this G with 4Q because 1G equals 4Q. So we replace this G with 4Q. And we know that 1Q is equal to 2 pints. So it's a little crazy. So that's going to be 2 times 4. But how many pints is this Q? Because it's 4Q, sure. But how many pints is in there? Well, 2 pints is in there. So we're going to write times 2. And then it's still the plus 1 over here. So this, I understand this might be confusing, but as long as you sort of follow the logic, you could also rely on the visual approach. So we're going to have 2 times 4 times 2 plus 1. So that's, 2 times 4 is 8. Times 2 is 16 plus 1. So that's going to be 16 plus 1. And that equals 17. All right. So in other words, 1Q is 2 pints. One quart is 2 pints. 1 gallon is 4 quarts. So really 1 gallon is going to be 8 pints. I mean, that's another thing we could have said. We could have said, therefore, 1 gallon is equal to 8 pints, just based off of this reasoning process. If 1 quart is equal to 2 pints, 1 gallon is equal to 4 quarts, then 1 gallon is going to equal 4 times 2 pints, which is 8 pints. All right? So that's another thing we could have done. So you could have thought of it that way too. So then you would focus here, where it's like, okay, 2 gallons plus 1, that's essentially what they're asking for. 2 gallons plus 1 pint. We want to know how many pints are in there. Well, we could have just immediately actually taken it to there, because then it would be 2 times 8 plus 1. All right, hopefully that makes sense. Moving on. At the grocery store, you bought 4 boxes of cereal and a carton of strawberries. The carton of strawberries cost $2.89. The bill came to a total of $12.25. How much was 1 box of cereal? Yeah, so the bottom line is you bought 4 boxes of cereal. Here they are. It'll be blue. Plus 1 carton of strawberries. We'll make that red. And that ended up equaling $12.25. So that's what happens when you add it all up, right? So we already know how much this thing cost. It was $2.89. So I'm actually just going to write that. $2.89. And then, we still have $12.25 over here. But this is $2.89, so that's the strawberries. But we don't know what this is, so we're going to call it X. So really, it's just, X plus X plus X plus X plus 289, right? Because we don't know what the cost of each box of cereal is. And then you could just rewrite that as 4X, because all of these are like terms. X plus X plus X plus X. You could combine them to like terms and it becomes 4X. So that'd be 4X plus $2.89. And that equals $12.25. So then what we'd have to do is we'd want to get 4X by itself in order to solve for X. Clearly that 2.89 is in the way. So we're going to have to subtract 2.89 from both sides. 2.89 from both sides, and that cancels that, and that leaves us with 4X equals, now we're going to have to sort of go off to the side over here, so we have 12.25 minus 2.89, so over here it's going to be 15 minus 9 because 5 is not large enough, so we actually have to turn that into a 15. We have to drop this down by 1. So 15 minus 9 is 6, okay, 6. And then 1 minus 8, that won't work, so we have to add 10 to that, and adding 10 to 1 would give us 11. But if we add 10 to that 1, then we have to drop this one down to I have to drop this 2 down to 1 rather, and then take it from there. So 11 minus 8 is 3. We still have this decimal. And then we have 1 minus 2. But really it's just 11, this big 11 right here, minus 2, which is just 9. And we are done with that part. So then we have 9.36 over here. We then have to divide everything by 4. Canceling. And then, let's see, we'd have x equals 9.36 divided by 4. And 4 goes into 9 twice. But before I do that, actually, I'm going to write the decimal where it belongs, which is right there. So 4 goes into 9 twice, because 4 times 2 is 8, so we're going to have 2. We are going to have 8, we're going to subtract 8, we're going to have 1. Then we're going to drop this 13 down. How many times does 4 go into 13? 4 goes into 13 3 times, because 4 times 3 is 12, so we're going to put a 3 right there. And then we end up with 4 times 3 is 12. Subtracting the 12 gives us a 1. Dropping down this 6. 4 times what gives me 16? 4 times 4 gives me 16, so therefore 234 is the answer. 234. Slow that down, my student at home. Slow that down if need be on the YouTube. Or on YouTube. Slow it down if you have to. Rewind that if you have to. If you need to brush up on long division. But that's how you do it. Alright, moving on to these problems. So we want to get the 6m by itself, so let's subtract 15 from both sides. So we'd have 6m, we'd have minus 15, canceling, and we have 6m equals 12 minus 15. 12 minus 15. Since the smaller number is subtracting the larger number, the result's going to be negative. I'll say it again. Since the smaller number is subtracting the larger number, the result is going to be negative. And then you can think of it as 15 minus 2. 15 minus 2 is 3. But it's going to be a negative 3. So now we have to divide both sides by 6. And that would leave us with m equals, negative 3 over 6, which reduces to negative 1/2. Teacher's probably going to want to see that as the answer. Okay, x over 4 minus 7 plus 9. So we're going to add 7 to both sides. And we have x over 4 equals 9 plus 7 is 16. Hopefully my student recognizes that. Now this is the first time in this video where we'd have to face a problem where we have an x in a numerator, but there's something in a denominator to contend with. Just remember, this is code for x divided by 4 equals 16. So 4 is the divisor, so to get rid of it we have to multiply both sides by 4. Alright, that would cancel. And then we end up with x equals 16 times 4. And that is 64. I know that just kind of on my own. But let's take a look. 16 times 4. The 6 times 4 is 24. So we put a 4 here. And we put a 2 there. And then we have 1 times 4 is 4. Plus the extra 2 is 6. So that's going to be 64. So therefore, we have 64. And that should be the answer to that one. Okay, so we have negative 6 plus f over 3 equals 2. So we want to get this term at least by itself. So then we're going to have plus 6. And then we have f over 3 equals, okay, well, what is 2 plus 6? 2 plus 6 is 8. And again, we have f divided by 3 equals 8. How do we get rid of that 3? Simple. You just multiply both sides by 3. That would cancel it. And then you end up with a situation over here that says f equals 24. And we are done looking at this one. We want to at least get this term that has g in it by itself. The 5 is in the way. We're going to leave this on the right-hand side of the equation. So let's get rid of this 5. And the way that we would get rid of the 5 is by subtracting 5 from both sides. Canceling. And then we end up with g over, that's a 9 down there, and that equals 13 minus 5 is 8. And then we'd have to multiply both sides by 9. So let's do that. 9, 9. And then we end up with cancel, cancel. And then we have g equals, let's see, 9 times 8. What is that? 9 times 8. What is 9 times 8? Well, I know what it is. It's 72. You know why I know? Because I memorized the multiplication table, which my students should totally do. Moving on. All right, so we have 7 plus d over 6 equals 19. We got to get this d over 6 by itself. So we have negative 7 minus 7. And then we have, of course, as a result of that, d over 6 equals, well, what the heck is 19 minus 7? 19 minus 7 is, I'm having a problem with my brain. 19 minus 7 is 12, yes. And then, of course, we have to get rid of the 6 by doing that. And then that cancels. And then we end up with d equals 12 times 6. What is 12 times 6? Well, that's going to be 60 plus 12, which is 72. So I know that as well. But it's going to be 12 times 6. Let's say you didn't know. The 2 times 6 is most definitely 12. So we're going to do the units digit, carry the 1. Then we're going to have 1 times 6 is 6, plus the extra 1 is 7. So D is definitely 72. All right, we're going to leave this C on the left. So I want my students to pay very close attention to this. We're going to leave this negative C on the left. Now this is a positive 11 right here. So in order to get rid of it, we have to subtract 11. That cancels it. What does that leave? A negative C. So please, my student at home, please definitely write negative C equals 18 minus 11. What is 18 minus 11? That is 7. And then we have to divide both sides by the invisible negative 1, because the truth is that's really just a negative 1 times C. It's being multiplied to C right now. Okay? So whenever you see a negative C equals something like that, that is secretly negative 1 times C equals 7. Okay? So let's focus over here again. We got to divide both sides by negative 1. Divide by negative 1. Cancel. And then we end up with C equals 7 divided by negative 1 is negative 7. Moving on. So we have a y over here. I'm going to want to keep the y over here. All right, so let's get rid of this 25. So the 25 gets gone by subtracting 25 from both sides. What does that leave over here? Negative 7y. And that equals 4 minus 25. We have a small number subtracting a larger number. So we know that the result is going to be negative. So I'm just going to write that. Once you know that, then subtract the smaller from the larger. 25 minus 4 is 21. So that's a way of going about it. Maybe my student prefers that, method. Once again, we have a smaller number subtracting a larger number, so the result is going to be negative. Just write the negative symbol. Once you know that, then take the larger and subtract the smaller. 25 minus 4 is 21, but it's a negative 21. Okay? So then we have this y. We got to get rid of that negative 7, so we're going to divide both sides by negative 7. Cancel, and that results in y equals, okay, negative 21 divided by negative 7. First of all, it's going to be positive or negative. Well, negative divided by a negative is a positive, so it's going to be a positive. Then it's just 21 divided by 7, which is 3. That is the answer. All right, moving on to this one. 34 minus 7q equals negative 8. So we want to at least get negative 7q by itself, so we got to get rid of this 34, positive 34, by subtracting 34 from both sides. We end up with negative 7q equals, okay, so we have a negative 8 minus 34. If you get clear on the number line situation, the 0 would be here. You'd have a negative 8 over here. So here's our starting point, right? And we're looking at negative 8 minus 34. So negative 8, clearly our starting point, but he's walking to the left 34. So the nose is over here. He's walking to the left 34 steps, which just brings us in, you know, an increasingly sort of negative direction, right? Here's 0. He's on negative 8, and he's going 34 to the left. So that's going to be negative 8 minus another 34, which really amounts to 8 plus 34, only in the negative direction. I'll say that again. This results in 8 plus 34, but only in the negative direction. Okay? Again, 8 plus 34, but in the negative direction. So let's just figure out what 34 plus 8 is right now. Let's see, so 4 plus 8 is 12, so we have a units digit of 2, carry the 1, and then we have 3 plus 1, which is 4, so we have 42. So this is going to be, negative 8 minus 34 is going to be not positive 42, but negative 42. All right, hopefully that makes sense. Negative 8 minus 34, negative 8 minus 34 is negative 42. Then we're going to divide both sides by that negative 7. And then we would have q equals, well, first of all, is this going to be positive or negative? Well, it's a negative divided by a negative, so therefore it's going to be positive. Then we ask ourselves, 42 divided by 7, what is that? Turns out that that is 6. All right, hopefully that makes sense. So there's a u over 9 actually right here, and we want to get this term by itself first, so we got to get rid of that 13, and the way that we're going to do it is minus 13, cancel, and then we end up with u over 9 equals, okay, 67 minus 13, we'll go off to the side and do that, 67 minus 13. So 7 minus 3 is most definitely 4. And then we have 6 minus 1 is 5. That one was pretty straightforward. So we have 54. Now, in order to get rid of this denominator of 9, what do we have to do? We have to multiply 9 times everything, and that cancels. And then we end up with u equals whatever 9 times 54 is. Now, let's work that out off to the side as well. So, let's see. 54 times 9. Well, the 4 times 9 is 36, so the units digit of 6 goes there, carry the 3. And then we end up with 5 times 9, which is 45. 5 times 9 is 45 plus 3, which is 48, so that's going to be 486. So 486 goes right here. All right, so that's how you do that one. That's actually a crazy large number. U equals 486. My U looks a little weird. Looks almost like an A, but it's not an A. It's a U, so U equals 486. All right, so then we have negative 94 equals 25 plus A over 7. So I'm going to do a little divider to kind of separate that. We want to get this A over 7 by itself, so we got to get rid of that 25. So we're going to subtract 25 from both sides. So on the next line, we would therefore have A over 7 equals negative 94 minus 25. And negative 94 minus 25. So let's visualize what's happening on the number line. We have a 0 right here. We have negative 94, and we have that as our starting point. And we could write down what's happening here. It's negative 94 minus 25. So starting point's right here. We're subtracting 25, so our person is facing left. And how many steps is he walking? 25. So he's going 25 in that direction, right? 25 steps. And I'll call it negative 25 because it's negative 25. So he's going negative 25. So he's going in that direction. So it's, 94 in the negative direction plus another 25 in the negative direction. So it's definitely going to be further negative down the number line. So one thing's for sure is that when we're analyzing negative 94 minus 25, it's definitely going to be negative, right? But then it's like, well, what's the number? Well, it's 94 plus 25 in that direction. Okay, I'll say that again. It's 94 in the negative direction plus another 25 units in the negative direction. So that's going to be, ultimately you could think of it temporarily as like 94 plus 25. All right, and then you just go 4 plus 5 is 9. And then you would do 9 plus 2 is 11. So we have 119. Therefore, it's negative 119. Again, if you have to rewind and watch that whole shenanigans over again, go ahead and do it. But then we have A divided by 7 equals negative 119. So now we're going to multiply both sides by 7. Now, I'm going to make sure that there's a parentheses around this to clearly show that we're multiplying these numbers. Okay. So why do we multiply both sides by 7? Well, because the 7s would now cancel. You end up with 8 equals. Now we have negative 119 times 7. So first of all, it's a negative times a positive. So therefore, we know the answer is going to be negative. But then the question is, oh crap, what is, 14, or what is 119 times 7? So once again, it's a positive times a negative, so we know it's going to be a negative, but then we have to sort of go off to the side and figure out what is 119 times 7. So 9 times 7 is 63. Hopefully my student remembers that from earlier. Units digit is 3, carry the 6. Then we have 1 times 7 is 7, plus 6 is 13. So we once again have a units digit of 3, but this time we have to carry a 1. And then we have 1 times 7 is 7, plus 1 is 8. So hopefully I did that right. I mean, there's always a chance I made a careless mistake, but I don't think I did. So it looks like 119 times 7 is 833. So it's going to be negative 833. All right, so we have 19 minus 4z equals negative 5. So we want to at least get this negative 4z by itself because we're looking for z. So we got to get rid of this 19, which means we have to subtract 19 from both sides. And that would cancel. Then we're left with negative 4z equals negative 5 minus 19. So let's analyze that. Negative 5 minus 19. And we have a number line here, 0. We have negative 5. We have a man standing on negative 5. It's negative 5 minus 19, so the man is facing left. And then we have 19 steps in that direction. So he's going 19 steps in that direction. So it's already negative 5, and then it's another 19 in that direction. So is the result going to be positive or negative? It's going to be negative. So I am literally going to just write negative whatever, getting ready to write the number. So what is it going to be? It's 5 in the negative direction plus another 19 in the negative direction. So what is 5 plus 19? What is 5 plus 19? 5 plus 19 is 24. So we're going to write 24. But it's a negative 24. Hopefully that makes sense from a visual point of view. So we're solving for z, so we got to get rid of that negative 4. So we're going to divide both sides by negative 4. And therefore, we end up with z equals, okay, negative 24 divided by negative 4. First of all, is it going to be positive or negative? A negative divided by a negative is a positive, so we need to keep that in mind. And then we ask ourselves, okay, well, what's 24 divided by 4? 24 divided by 4 is 6. So hopefully that is the answer. I'm pretty sure I'm right about that. All right, k over 8 minus 37 equals negative 5. So we have a term minus 37 equals negative 5. So we want to get this term by itself because it has k in it. So clearly the negative 37 is in the way. The way that we're going to get rid of that is we're going to add 37 to both sides. Plus 37 plus 37. That would cancel it. And then we end up with k over 8 equals negative 5 plus 37. Negative 5 plus 37. Let's think about that. I'm going to write that down. Negative 5 plus 37. Now, we could totally do the number line thing right now. Negative 5 is where the man is standing. Plus means he's facing right, and he's walking 37 steps to the right. However, another way of dealing with these, where you have a negative number plus a positive number, you could just change the order. I mean, you could just write positive 37 plus negative 5. And then you could remember, oh, whenever I add a negative, it's really just subtraction. So then really, I mean, that's just 37 minus 5. So if you have to, my student at home, if you have to stare at this progression for like 20 minutes until you understand what happened here, do it. Okay. Negative 5 plus 37. I could have done this, and it would have worked. I could have done the number line thing, and that would have worked. Or I could be like, all right, well, when it comes to addition, I can write these two things in any order I want. So I could write it as 37 plus negative 5. I mean, why the heck not? And then I could hopefully, due to my mathematical training, recognize that anytime you see a plus minus, like right next to each other, that becomes a minus. Okay? So it's really 37 minus 5, which is a lot easier to deal with. 37 minus 5 is 32. And then that is what this is, right? Because it was negative 5 plus 37. Well, that's 32. And then we have k divided by 8 equals 32. So it's k over 8 equals 32. So then in order to get rid of this denominator of 8, I think my student at home hopefully is getting the hang of it. You got to multiply both sides by 8. Cancel, cancel. K equals. All right. 32 times 8. Let's do that off to the side. 32 times 8. What is 32 times 8? We'll go over here. 32 times 8. So 2 times 8 is 16. So we have a units digit of 6. Carry the 1. Then we have 3 times 8 is 24. So it's going to be 24 plus the 1 is 5. So it's 25 rather. So that's 25. So 32 times 8 is 256. So amazing. That is the answer to that one. Pretty sure. Obviously, for my student at home, there's the chance I made careless mistakes. Pretty sure I didn't. But, you know, be on the lookout for potential careless mistakes. But anyway, hopefully that's helpful. Hopefully that makes sense. To my student at home, good luck. I believe if you study this video, put it on fast forward, watch the patterns, even get used to the visual components. For example, this, 8 being multiplied next to a fraction and these two 8s being canceled right here. At a certain point, even the visual aspect of this whole process starts to become ingrained in you. And then it just becomes easier and easier and easier over time because you see how everything fits together and the patterns, and you get used to the process and so on. And maybe at a certain point, by the way, it actually might become fun. You never know. Okay, so I didn't think it could be, but I realized around sophomore year of high school that this stuff is kind of fun. I was a little bit of a late bloomer realizing that. But anyway, good luck. And for those of you not my students, hopefully this was helpful to you guys as well. And I will talk to you later.